Okay, this next one's about Liverpool. One thing I perhaps need to explain is the weekend I was in Liverpool, there was a festival built around something called a lamb banana. And a lamb banana is it's a sculpture that starts out as a lamb and ends up as a banana at the tail. And it was devised. The original one was called Super Lamb Banana, and that is bright yellow, and it was devised by a Japanese sculptor as a sort of warning as to what's going to happen if we mess about with genetics and things like that. So it's a warning. But in Liverpool that weekend they got lots of smaller ones, and companies had been encouraged to sponsor one and have them done up in their company logos, and then they were being put around the city. And there was 4 of them dressed as the Beatles in Sgt. Pepper uniforms. That was quite interesting. So that's what was going on the weekend that inspired this poem. It's called Setting. The city hums with the passage of alert hours to the tune of a day in the life. Moorfields is taken over by a flock of lamb bananas grazing amongst commercial glass towers, a closed railway station and an empty coffee shop. Walton's neatly trimmed houses back onto unmade playgrounds with fields of strawberries and lonely graveyards. The Dingles' blue-collar terraces, rife with the toil and exertion through frozen Mersey winters. Album-cover pubs painted in the colours of a corporation bus. I watched 2 girls giggling as they perch upon the wall in Penny Lane and had my photograph taken performing poetry on the stage in the cavern. Then I wandered through wigwams and churches, docklands and migration, the 3 graces, and the divide of red and blue. Water swirls like a stirred cup of sweet coffee, steaming with the essence of diesel and drains as the ferry carries me to Birkenhead in search of daylight. And I reflect that this was once ordinary and to most insignificant. I'm going to finish with my poem about Memphis. I was lucky enough to go to Memphis back in April as part of an Elvis tour. Now, I'm not a big Elvis fan, but I am into the blues. And the treat for me was to go to Beale Street. And whilst I was there, there was a jobbing musician performing in one of the bars, and he had a break, and I went and had a chat with him. And his name is David Bowie, and he and I chatted about the blues, and this is really comes from that event. It's called Memphis. We look at our worlds differently, eyes trickling over faded paint peels, glaring wounds revealing the skin of an olden story, whose theme song was sung by a barbershop quartet dressed in moleskin waistcoats and pale candy straw hats. And I could see what you said was true. The dust bowled itself into soup that it was illegal to slurp, or caught itself under the fingernails of walls. The dirty rain never seemed to clean the streets. It stirred sewage from the drains and washed the air with cess. Part-broken neon tubes fizzed out of nowhere like fly traps that stung you. Where had all the hipsters gone with their funky folk tunes, sharp flared purple suits? The grocery shop wined and dined for nickels and dimes, cornbread with grits and starch for your collar, blues and reds and cigarettes, beer in paper bags, jazz and bass and potato chips and apple cannonballs, Hershey heads kissed melting lips and stainless sheets of the second coming. Fat tyres broke wind and left a bitter aftertaste that caught my expelled fumes in Belch Theatre, rippling my six-pack as it hides under my fully paid gut. Walking fingers shuffle into the next riff, blind, bowed, bent strings between home and a hotel, sharing beer in phased-out bars where guitarists signed their axes and left them to hang like night blues fruits. Jug bands hollered cotton ballads deep from the Delta mud. Boll weevils still live here, sucking the candy from the floss, stripping the shirt from your back before it's spun and hit the loo. Harmonicas forced hum notes deep from the cotton soul. The blues lived here, sucking the music from the fog, stripping the final from the groove before it spun to hit a true tune. You looked at me with different eyes, stared into me, focused on my hollow vibes and called for me to belt it out. From a whisper to a shout, gonna holler about guitar licks, gonna drink bourbon and beer, gonna rock it out on Beale Street, gonna shed no tears, gonna celebrate difference, gonna drink bourbon and beers, gonna finger pick a slow tune, gonna shed no tears. Thank you very much.